Today I'll be presenting the TicketPress, which is our new ticket printer. I'll be your presenter, and my name is Ann Crowley. The TicketPress is a replacement for the SP2200 ticket printer. TicketPress features fast printing at 200 characters per second. It has automatic head gap adjustment for tickets, and what this means is if you have different thickness of tickets, the head automatically senses this and adjusts for it. The SP2200 only had a manual adjustment, so adjustments had to be made by hand. It has standard RS-232 interface, and what this means to you is that if you had a cable that you were using with an SP2200, you can just plug it in and be ready to go. Easy to change, no mess ribbon cartridge. I'll show you how easy that is by stepping around here and removing the ribbon cartridge and then reinstalling it. If you had ever done that in many competitive products or even with the SP2200, you would end up washing your hands because you would have had ink on them. The TicketPress features a display window for simple configuration. In the past, our product had dip switches, and now we have a display where the different capabilities are featured on the window itself during setup. It has an internal battery backup for time and date and serialized ticket ID numbers. And comparing that to the SP2200, we had a wheel where you had to adjust and set the time and date. So this is now done electronically through our menu and is much easier from a setup perspective. We have field installable options. This is an example of one for the RS422 and 20 milliamp current loop. RS422 is a relatively new capability that we have had customers request it, so we look forward to being able to provide this for you also. And now I'll just go through some of the operation and setup of the printer. The self-test is very easy to do. All you do is power off the printer, and then you would want to insert a paper in here that it would be at least 5 by 8 inches in length. You press and hold the plus button, which is on the display here, and then you turn the printer on while holding down that plus button, and after the printer beeps, you release the button. And this is an example of the self-test that actually prints out at that point in time. And once the self-test is complete, you are ready for the hex dump. And what this shows an example. Your data that you're sending probably is not exactly like this, but this is a data that's coming out of a product, and the first lines show actually what's coming from the indicator, and then the next shows you your ASCII characters and associated with this dump. So these lines we added just to kind of show you where in relative they are into the character string here. So this helps you troubleshoot. If you have something that's printing erroneously, you can find out what character might be causing the problem. And so this is a very simple, the self-test and the hex dump are kind of a troubleshooting tool for you. And to turn this off, you hold down the power button, and then it just turns off the printer, and then you're ready to restart in the normal standard mode. And then basically how you set up the printer. To enter the setup menu, you turn off the printer, and then you hold down the other button. It's kind of shaped like an arrow, and then you press and release the power button. And you have held down that arrow button, and then you'll see that entering setup menu is displayed. It actually has a little beep that you can hear it, and so then you're in the setup menu. And you know you're there because the display shows you that. And so using that arrow key, you can toggle between the top level menus. And these are options, interface, exit, and setup menu. And then entering the menus, you go through by basically holding that same arrow key a little bit longer to go down under those menus. And so that arrow key becomes a multi-function key, and it's by how long you hold it down is how you toggle through the menus. And so as you can see, you use the arrow key to get down there, and then use the plus value, the plus key to change the value, and then the arrow key once again advances you to the next menu and save. So at any point, if you're in a loop, just remember that to exit the loop, you're going to hold down the button a little bit longer to get to the next menu level. And so you continue to toggle to the display shows exit setup menu, and then you press that arrow key again to exit the setup menu, and your display will show one of two messages. Either you're exiting saving changes or you're exiting with no changes. And when you do exit, the printer does a reboot, and that means it powers down and starts back up again. In the options menu, you have the following capabilities. You have location, time, date, and ticket ID. And this information can be set up very similar to how the SP22 operated. So you either have it all off, you can print first, print last, or print after unit. And this is talking about when the variable data is printed along with the weight data. And then the location refers to whether it's US time and date or international time and date. The ID value has 3 selections. You can count up. This means that as each weighment is printed, before you've actually printed that data, the value is incremented. So you get a new higher value every time you print. You can have a constant value, which is printed on every ticket the same value. This might be a handy tool if you're wanting to always print, that this came from this location, so it has a different value for each printer location or something. So that's a constant value where it never changes. And then you have a count in range where the value is incremented within a specified range before it is printed. So this means that you might set 1 to 100, and it would do 1 to 100 and then start over again at 1 again once you've reached 100. There is a ticket out fault, and what this is talking about is the action that is taken when you attempt to print past the bottom of the ticket. And either you have it on or it is set up to reprint the page entirely. Enable ticket sensor is either on or off, and when it's on, a red light will appear on the display and insert ticket is displayed on the display itself. If it's off, the printer won't know you don't have a ticket installed, so it's not going to buffer the data. It's going to attempt to try to print with no paper in the ticket space. We have 2 different print modes, standard and weight extraction. Standard means data is just printed from your host device. For example, from your indicator, you would push the print button at the indicator and you would just print to the printer. There is also setup available in the standard mode where you can print from the indicator or the printer. So this would be 2 different locations for printing. And from the printer, you would need a digital input. So we have a cable that is wired so that there is a cable coming in so you can wire to the digital input of your indicator also. From weight extraction, this means the printer is kind of the smart device, and it extracts the weights, units, and status information from a data input stream. And then it can also echo out this information to a remote display or other device, say a PC. So here the printer is acting smart and it's taking data from the indicator that may be streaming the data to it. And in this weight extraction mode, we have 2 modes itself called demand or continuous. And most of the time you're probably going to use demand. And here the print button is used on the printer and it records the next complete record. In continuous, the printer is going to be printing all the time the information it's received, so it's just streaming out data to the printer nonstop. We have the capability of ignoring a line feed. Where this is handy is if you have a device that's sending extra lines and you want the printer to be the smart device because you cannot change your serial string coming from the other device. So you can turn this on where the printer ignores a line feed after a carriage return, or no, it prints all line feeds as received. And this works in the standard mode, not weight extraction. High impact mode is one of the features of the printer itself. When this is on, the data is printed in a bold format. It actually does 3 strikes, so it's like a 3-strike impact. And this reduces the speed of the printed ticket. With this, you can print on 4 carbonless copies or 5 carbon copies. There are several different setups that are based just from the printer itself. You can do a normal print, which we have an example, 2 wide, 2 high, or 2 wide and double high. And this is all done from the menu setup. And the examples here are just an example of the serial string. Whatever your product is sending or indicator is sending would be the data that is actually printed. This is just showing you the character sizes. We also have the capability of an invert text and reverse feed. So this means that instead of printing in one direction, it prints in the other direction. So if your ticket is spaced on the left or the right, you may want to print your data different directions. Or you may want to print from the bottom of the ticket up rather than from the top of the ticket down. So we have this capability built into the printer. There are numerous fonts available. This is a new feature. Before we just had one font, we could size it different ways. With this printer comes standard of very numerous fonts. We have OCR, so if you have somebody who's using an optical carriage reader, that font is available on the printer. This is just an example of some of the fonts. There are numerous ones, and examples are provided in our manual. In the interface menu itself, you have the following information that you can set up. You can enable the current loop option, baud rate, data bits, stop bits, parity, data terminal ready, X on, X off handshaking, RTS, CTS handshaking, automatic carriage return, automatic line feed, enable data echo. Thank you for watching our webinar today. We're proud to be introducing our TicketPress and look forward to helping you. Please contact webinars@ricelake.com for any follow-up questions.